So you've seen Resident Evil 4, the remake version has come out for VR, on the PSVR 2, and you're just wondering how the game stacks up in VR. Well, have no fear, WaqMan is here. Today I'm going to give you an honest review of the VR aspect of Resident Evil 4, the remake. Now, I'm not going to cover the game itself, as you probably already know that it is pretty awesome, which means that this isn't going to be that long of a video. I will be doing a light comparison with the Quest version of Resident Evil 4 as well as Resident Evil 5 in VR on the PSVR 2. So let's get started. Now let me just tell you from the beginning, the Quest version in comparison to the remake version on the PSVR 2 is a night and day difference. It honestly isn't even comparison. It's like playing a PS2 game on the Quest and the PS4 game on this version. Visually, it is quite close to Resident Evil 5, although not as good, just close. That being said, I think they've added new features to this game which kind of makes it annoying, like the knife breaking. The original Resident Evil 4 didn't have the knife breaking, but this time it breaks pretty quickly. Considering the knife is extremely useful in VR, it is kind of disappointing to me. Another thing that disappoints me about this game, which is expected, is that you can't really interact with anything as you would do for a native VR game. This is a port of a flat screen game to VR, so manage your expectations. You won't be opening doors, picking items, or even punching people. None of that is present, which is again disappointing. I believe Resident Evil 5 had more interactivity in VR than this game, but they might have created Resident Evil 5 with VR in mind. As a port, this game is really good, but honestly I feel a bit queasy playing Resident Evil 4 in VR. I felt the same on the Quest version as well though. I don't understand why, as I'm perfectly fine playing with Resident Evil 5 for hours in VR. As I mentioned, the main reason to play this game in VR is for the visual upgrade, and the feeling that you're actually there. This also means that you'll be terrified and screaming like a little girl running around trying not to get killed. From that perspective, the game is amazing. However, if you are looking for more than that, then you're going to be disappointed. This is a free VR upgrade, and even with this limited style, I would be happy for all other games to be playable in VR in the same fashion. But for cutscenes, you watch a movie, which takes you out of the immersion. Then, when you silently try and execute people, the movement is automatic, so not only is there a chance for you to get motion sickness, you can also see your character's headless body making the action, again taking you out of the immersion. Even the kick itself does that. Maybe they could have made a VR style kick that doesn't spin you around, but this does disappoint me. I'm mainly comparing it with Resident Evil 5, which, even thinking about it, was absolutely amazing. The cutscenes were in real time and actually chilling. Here, you're watching a movie. Now, I know everyone else seems to love it and say how great the VR version is, but in my opinion, it's just a little bit better than the Unreal Engine VR mod. It looks great and has full 6 degrees of freedom, plus some interactivity, such as being able to pull levers, but the main interactivity is with the weapons, being able to switch hands you use with the knife, but you can't adjust the knife yourself. You can put it up or down just using buttons. There is manual reloading, sort of. For handguns, it's kind of realistic, but for shotguns, you put one shell in and it fills the whole thing. Although you can fire a shotgun with one hand and it has a huge recoil if you do that, which is kind of cool, but that's about it. This isn't a VR game. This is a game in VR. There is a huge difference. Comparing zombie games, Arizona Sunshine 2 is a VR game that you will actually interact with things. Personally, I enjoyed Arizona Sunshine 2 more than Resident Evil 4 in VR. Obviously, Resident Evil 4 is a much better game in itself, but in terms of VR, even Arizona Sunshine 2 is better. But Resident Evil 4 Remake does look gorgeous in VR, in a dirty, dead kind of way. Also, apparently you cannot play your existing non-VR saves in the VR mode, so you will need to start fresh. The game tells you that itself, so just remember that. So, would I play the game like this? Well, the only reason I waited to play the remake version of this game was to play it in VR. However, after playing it, although it is fun, it just makes me a little queasy, and the immersion it gives is definitely not enough for me to power through. This isn't the same I would say for Resident Evil 5, which is definitely worth it in VR. That game is amazing. But since it is a free update, I'm grateful for that, and honestly, it is better in VR, but if you can look past the issues I've mentioned, and especially if the game doesn't make you queasy. Try out the demo if you're considering it. But if you were to choose between the Quest version and the PSVR 2 version, it isn't even a question. The PSVR 2 version wins hands down. Overall, I was impressed with the visuals, but that's about it. If you were thinking about getting a PSVR 2 just for this game, this isn't a system seller. However, there are already enough system seller games. Main ones for me are GT5, Resident Evil 5, No Man's Sky, and many more. So let me know what you think about the Resident Evil 4 Remake VR update. Are you going to play the game in VR? Or are you going to get the game if you hadn't already? Well, that's all folks. Hopefully I haven't upset the hardcore fans. But the issue isn't on Resident Evil 4, the issue is with the VR expectation. It is still very enjoyable and you'll still love it as the visuals are amazing. But this was my honest opinion from my experience. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Well, thanks for watching. Have a great day, stay safe, and see you next time.